It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
And Senator Bryan King is standing by. But before we go to Senator King, I want you to listen to this video. Watch this video. It's coming up. This is Senator Jim Hendren, a relative of Governor Asa Hutchinson, speaking recently at a Benton County Republican committee meeting. Listen to how he compares Conduit News to ISIS terrorists. Listen up and watch.
I'm in the military. I've been overseas at least 5 times in the last 5 or 6 years. And one of the most disturbing things for us in the military is when we have what we call insider attacks. And this happened a lot in Afghanistan. We would have people that we were training, Afghani nationals that we were training, who would put on the uniform of the coalition, who would take our supplies and our food and our training and then walk in with a suicide bomb or walk in and start shooting our own guys. I mean, it's bad enough to get shot by the enemy, but to get shot by your own team, it's inexcusable. It's so hard to understand. Well, we don't have anybody obviously shooting each other, but here's what we have in our Republican Party. In addition to an energized opponent who's found opponents for every one of our incumbents, we have some folks in our party who have put on our uniform, who've said they're Republicans, and after the primary is over, when we're supposed to come together, are continuing to attack our people. And I'm telling you, we've worked too hard to let that kind of stuff go on. I've lost some primaries, and it's not been easy, but you do the right thing and you get behind the winner and the nominee, and you do what you've got to do to keep moving the ball down the field. But we've got groups, let me give you some specific examples, and I think you all know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to be shy, it's Conduit. They have given money, $5,400 to Charlene Fight's Libertarian opponent, and in a fall election after the primary. They have spent hours attacking our Republican nominee, Bob Ballinger, in a Senate race against a Democrat and a Libertarian after the primary in this election season. They have had the Libertarian opponent against our Republican nominee for governor on their show numerous times, and they continue to trash our Republican nominee for governor. They have called this task force that I've talked about, that we spent a year trying to figure out how to cut taxes, a farce. They called the medical reform task force that I chaired, that we spent a year making reforms that saved the state hundreds of millions of dollars, literally over $800 million, a farce. And then they want to come and tell us they're on our team. Well, I hope that this county committee, because this is where the Republican Party, I believe, was built and began for this state, starts to take a stand against that kind of activity. To have people who want to do that come and speak to county committees, I think is inexcusable and needs to be stopped. So I guess I'm just telling you that I have absolutely no problem with people tearing each other up in the primaries. That's the way the process works. If you disagree and want to light up somebody in a primary, knock yourself out. But as a team, when the primary is over, we've got Democrats in the legislature right now because the Libertarian took so many votes from the Republican that the Democrat won. That's what this kind of foolishness that we allow to happen causes. So, again, I call them like I see them, and I'm going to make some folks mad with that, and I'll probably get trashed on the radio and some mean newspapers, like articles. I don't care. I'm just telling you that we've got to stop that kind of stuff. We've got to start coming together as a party and focusing on winning for Robin, and for Jim, and for Gayla, and for Cecile, for these people who have. Do you have a Democratic opponent today? Libertarian. They're not on our team. We need to support our team. So that's my pitch.
Okay, so just going to break that down just a little bit for you, and I'm hoping that we have Senator Bryan King the state's #1 most conservative voting record for senators. Senator King, are you on the phone with us?
Yeah, Jan, I am.
Okay, thank you for joining us this morning. Bryan, were you able to hear that? Did you see the video and heard what Hendren said?
I heard it, and yeah.
Yeah, I want to know
it,
your response
so.
to that. What's your response? What's
Jim
your initial reaction to that?
Well, Jim says he calls it as he sees it, and he's being honest about what he says. And the way Jim sees it is that if you question or do anything, or your principles are actually conservative, and that you're a terrorist. I mean, that's just it. I mean, you're a terror to them, and it just gets into one of these things. It's just a totally outrageous comment, but it just goes back into the thing of these guys don't like you speaking out about anything they do down there. They don't like you calling them out. They want you to align with what they want to, and if you don't, they're going to do everything they can, whether it's lie about you, whether it's try to get major money to try and beat you and funnel,
which is what they did to you.
Yeah,
which is what they did to
you.
You,
They sit there and said things. I wasn't conservative, and I wasn't, this, and they sit there and said
and yet you
things
got the
like
most
I
conservative
wasn't
voting
pro-life,
record.
and I wasn't this, and yet I was endorsed by Right to Life, and I was endorsed by Mike Huckabee. So they just continually will do anything or trying to silence you and say anything, and it even makes it into you're a terrorist. You're somebody that's going to go blow somebody up. I mean, I'm surprised right now. I don't know. I don't know what you and Linda are wearing right now, but I don't think you're wearing burqas right now. And
oh goodness,
I don't think that you have suicide vest on you right now. Do you? I mean, do you? I don't think so.
But he did compare. But he did compare to his to jihadists. I mean, that's what he compared.
I mean,
which is why you mentioned the burqa thing.
And but here's the thing: it just goes to show you the desperation that they're going to silence or make somebody out that they're crazy. Everything else. I mean, I've been saying things down there for years down there, but where has been Jim Hendren and Asa the last 3 years on all this corruption and everything else going on? I mean, I don't know.
Yes, there's a culture. There is a culture of corruption at the state capitol, and it has happened under Republican leadership. Bryan, I don't want to, didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to also get your take on this, because one of the things that Senator Hendren said was, he said that Conduit, they invited the Libertarian candidate for governor on to speak several times, but the Governor Asa Hutchinson's never been on. Well, I can't speak for Conduit, but I would guarantee you that Conduit would welcome the governor to come on anytime and answer to some of the things that have happened that are not very Republican under his leadership, like increasing government spending by over $600 million and increasing taxes on the people of this state. Those are not very Republican traits. And yet, of course, he's not going to come on, because he wouldn't even debate me when I was running against him for governor, which I think the Republican Party should have called him out on that. The Republican Party chair should have called him out on that and said the Democrats have had a debate televised statewide, and the Republican Party should do the same for the Republicans in this state. And that did not happen. And of course, I never got the chance to debate the governor and call him out on statewide television for the issues that I had with him. So anyway, I also wanted to know from you this not speaking part, this thing that Hendren said about, well, that you shouldn't be able to speak at the committees. They don't want Conduit speaking to the committees. You know what Conduit does to the committees? They go to the Republican committees and they want to tell them about the voting record of the Republicans. That's all and Hendren doesn't want them to do that, because the voting record is not what you say you do, it's what you really do.
Yeah, I mean, it's got where down there where they talk about how, we've talked about this before, how they lie to people when they sit there and say, this is saving money. Well, no, as we pointed out multiple times, if I was going to spend $100 million more next year, and now I'm only spending $50 million more next year, that doesn't mean I save money. And then who increased the spending, like they're talking about Medicaid spending? Well, who exponentially increased Medicaid spending the last 3 years when they come into office, and then all of a sudden it stays flat, which I don't know. You can't believe anything they say that's accurate. But if it was, where it retracted, it's like, well, you've been in there 3 years. I mean, we've wasted millions of dollars, and then now all of a sudden, right here, election year, you're figuring out how to do something and say something to get a political soundbite. But this is
actually
all
not
about,
just millions. Not only have we wasted millions, hundreds of millions, but we've also lost millions of dollars that's unaccounted for to this day. For example, Department of Human Services, they've misplaced over $43 million. They don't know where it is. Nobody seems to know where it is, and that's our money, $43 million. As if how did that happen?
And we'll hold them accountable. At least you've got legislators right now that are still trying to make sure that the director shows up and answers those questions. And
they call it an account. They think it might be an accounting error. How do you lose $43 million?
And then why do you promote the person that may have made the error?
And then how much money?
Like that, why do you promote?
Do you know how much money we're spending? We're paying an accounting firm, I believe, from Illinois. Like how many millions to find the error for us? I'll bet you we've got a good accountant or two in Arkansas that could probably find it. Why are we having to spend?
Audit department. We have a great audit department.
Why are we hiring a company from out of state? Why, if we're going to hire somebody to find money that our government lost, why aren't we hiring an Arkansas entrepreneur so we can keep that money in the state? See, these are the things that just drive me crazy, because the people of Arkansas, unless you're staying on top of this stuff, you don't know about it, and it's appalling and frustrating because people don't know.
And institutional knowledge will be lost, and it will be with legislators too. Those that know that there are issues when, for instance, when on the committee, if a few of us are gone, then what happens when the next legislators come in that had no knowledge of that? They let it go.
Right.
And all of a sudden it doesn't matter where the 43 million is. What a shame.
And we also lost, how many millions over with the Department of Human Services contract with some new equipment?
It's just, the numbers are so high now, it's staggering. And maybe Bryan,
25 million. Bryan, how much did we lose with a computer? It was a software program for DHS.
They spent $90 million on a system that did absolutely nothing. But here's the thing that
$90 million. Did we recover that money since the system didn't work for Obamacare? Or was it Arkansas works because our Republican governor wanted us to have socialized medicine in Arkansas, so he twisted the arms of Republican legislators to vote for something that they promised their constituents they wouldn't support. But now we have it, and now it's devastating the state financially. Did we ever recover that money that we lost that was because of bad equipment?
No, and we're not recovering the money for the big insurance companies because they're protected, and you have legislators down there that are part of it. I mean, you have a few people that make a few comments in a paper, but after that it ends, and they do not. This really gets back to Governor Beebe. It gets back to the leadership. It gets back to the leadership that was down there the last 3 years. I mean, this stuff comes out, and then no legislators will actually. I mean, they might say something in a committee meeting or grab a headline like they're doing something, but there's nothing else done. Everybody else just stays quiet down there. I mean, it is just. No one starts calling. I mean, here's the thing. You know, we're approaching the break, Bryan. So wrap it up pretty quickly. Backing up the Brinks truck at DHS, hauling off millions of dollars, and then now all of a sudden this comes out, and they want to start doing something now. And you know, they've had opportunities. Jim Hendren didn't support Medicaid disclosure. He did one time, and then not. And then they've come up with every excuse in the world. And the reality is, it protected people like Jeremy Hutchison, who's getting, as we know. This is just what we know, $500,000. At the same time, he's voting on stuff up there. I mean, Michael Lamoureux, I mean, it just keeps going and going. And, I mean, there's a point in time there that, you know, I've spent time down there that you didn't know what was going on. But then when I started saying something, in 2015, when I was on Fox News about we weren't doing redetermination on these Medicaid enrollees and beneficiaries, and you know what? It wound up busting out, and they couldn't keep it under wraps anymore. But you know,
Bryan, I have to interrupt you
on
that
thought. Covering this up for the people that should be responsible for it. I mean, and
there
now
is,
Jim Hendren wants to sit there
stop.
and say, "Well, you're a terrorist because you go to a county committee and you present a different opinion, or you at least present something different side. You're a terrorist." That's how he.
Okay,
that's
Bryan,
how they use words to manipulate to try and.
I appreciate it.
Not trying to discredit you before you even get there. That's what they're trying to do, is trying to keep any type of different opinion, the truth or anything, responsibility that is on them. They've been down there for 3 years. I mean, this is nothing new.
Brian,
I mean,
we're
I
in a
tell you, I
break.
met
I'm
with
going to
Jim
have to
Hendren
toss to a break.
about the budget.
Well, we're
Okay.
going to finish talking to
All right.
Brian in just a moment. We're going to have to go to a break. We got a quick break we have to take, and then we're going to finish with Brian in just a few moments. So, Brian, stay with us. Sorry to have to interrupt you. We got to take this
Okay.
break. Thanks. All right. Thanks for joining us. Having a little bit too much fun on the set with Senator Linda Collins Smith and Senator Bryan King on the phone with us. Brian, we got a hard break coming up at 7:30. And I wanted to ask you this because I love you. I love your voting record, #1 most conservative voting record in the state of Arkansas in the Senate. And I wanted to hear from you because you were beat in the May primary. We're losing you to a guy that, to someone that Asa endorsed and supported. And I just want to know, what are you going to do now? Are you going to pull out of politics, or can we still count on you being engaged and involved and helping us straighten out state
I think
government?
I'm going to be engaged, involved. I mean, I like I said, the next 4 months, I think that hopefully Senator Collins Smith's going to work on some things in judiciary. I mean, we have right now. You look at. Well, one thing about Jeremy Hutchison is not just what's come out and what he's been involved in and what he's been accused of and what he's been a part of, is the result. I mean, he's been judiciary chairman since 2013, and we now have a crime crisis. We have a prison crisis, okay? We have a probation and parole crisis. And who is responsible for that? Asa Hutchison. Jeremy Hutchison was the lead person that Jim Hendren, everybody turned to try and solve all these problems, and things are far worse. I mean, it's going to get where the result of everything they're trying to do, as we said, they were spending too much money. Now they create this tax thing to lower taxes, but yet everything winds up being a tax shift. I mean, they can't. We don't have money for highways. You know, the results is that they spend at the end of the year on $5.6 billion. They say we have a $44 million surplus. I mean, they're virtually spending every dollar that comes in. And what's
because now the highway department says that none of the gambling money is going to go toward, if we get that, none of that's going to go toward roads and highways either. They wanted to make sure because they're saying
they
that
create one that's saying something that actually doesn't happen. I mean, it consistently happens. So if you consistently just keep saying the same thing, eventually, you know, everything that they said about I was crazy, a bully, you know, mentally unstable, whatever else, about all the corruption and everything going on, and what was going on with the Medicaid mafia and all that. And you know what?
Right.
Now they're not saying it. But they have the money, they have the influence, they have the media on their side. They have,
and now they've got federal prosecutors. System. Now they got federal prosecutors after them, and we're going to see some big, heavy stuff happening this week in the sentencing phase of those trials. Brian, we got to run. We're on a hard break. Thanks so much for joining us, and we're coming back after the 7:30, and lots more to come. So be sure to stay tuned.